You're listening to a Pop House Network podcast for developers by developers.
Welcome to OffHeap episode 87. Hey everyone, we're finally back, and with the OG crowd. We took a little break. It was summer. It was hot. It was nice. There were margaritas involved, but we're back. We're back, and we are here with tons of news of what has happened, and we'll see where the new interesting corners of AI take us today. For those who are tuning in, my name is Freddie Guime. I'm a distinguished software engineer at Expedia Group, author, speaker, Java champion, and and actually speaker at DevNexus. So for those who don't know, OffHeap will be down there, but we'll talk about that later at the end of the segment.
All right. Hey, I'm Bob Paulin. I'm a software engineer at Datavolo, Apache Software Foundation member, Java champion, CJUG board chair, speaker, and I will also be speaking at DevNexus with OffHeap and also with a talk of my own on Apache NiFi.
Nice.
Josh Juno, senior software engineer, author, speaker, and of course, podcaster, and Jakarta EE ambassador and Java champion.
Michael Manella, author, speaker, director of the open source Spring team at Broadcom, Java champion, and curmudgeon at large.
And futurely will be replaced by an LLM version of Michael. But we will try this. We'll talk about that story a little bit later as we go through. But before we dive in, today's show is sponsored by Datadog, a monitoring and analytics platform that integrates with over 450 technologies, including AWS services, Docker, and Kubernetes. Datadog's platform brings together metrics, traces, and logs in one place, so you can get full visibility into your environment and improve your application performance. With machine learning-based alerts, customizable dashboards, and distributed tracing, Datadog makes it easy to unify disparate data sources so you can troubleshoot faster. Start your free Datadog trial today. Listeners of this podcast will receive a free t-shirt once you install the agent and create one dashboard. Visit javaoffheap.com/Datadog to get started. And again, that URL is javaoffheap.com/Datadog. We thank them for sponsoring this podcast and keeping the lights on, the mics on, and the beers flowing. So go ahead and give them a try. All right. So let's start with the news. Which is the first one?
I think this was mine. So bring it up really quick. The British government is transferring sovereignty of an island in the Indian Ocean, Mauritius, to somebody else. Because of that, the top-level domain, the .io domain that they are allocated as an independent country, by policy should go away because the country is no longer there. But the .io domain is a unique one in that country has been able to monetize that TLD extensively in our industry. So there's a big question mark about what's going to happen with it. Like I said, by policy, it should go away, but there's a lot of money sitting there that I have a hunch that those rules are going to be rewritten, but it'll be interesting to watch that as it goes on. And
then just to say, like Spring has some properties on the IO side, right?
Spring.io, yep, exactly. Start.spring.io. But isn't Bob? Isn't it Datavolo.io?
Datavolo is an IO. Yeah, there's
like
entire companies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, entire companies are .ios.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so this isn't something that's like I said, it's pervasive. There's a ton of money in the .io domain. So it'll be interesting to see. Like I said, by policy, it should go away because the country doesn't exist anymore. But I wonder if this is going to be something similar to like Company A buys Company B, and Company A gets all of company B's stuff. So does that mean country A that's getting country B get all of country B's stuff, including the TLD? Like, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Historically, that has been the case. But yeah, no, that's. I mean, how many times does this happen, right? Like when a country technically,
I don't think it has. That's the point. That's why it's so interesting.
I think it has, though. I mean, there was something that when I was reading the article, that folks were citing as hey, because it happened this way, this is why we think it might happen. The USSR collapsing, SU for the Soviet Union.
Okay. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's in the article and they talk about the history of the SU domain.
Okay.
Very different world at the
Yeah,
time
yeah.
that was deprecated. So to, seeing how much traffic and how much ownership there is already on that IO domain, to just say bye-bye does seem kind of ridiculous. But, to say, hey, are we in, some waters we haven't been in before, because we would normally just deprecate it, and now we probably shouldn't. Probably means there's some decisions to make, A, about the ownership, B, about, setting some precedents of how this might be handled in the future. Because let's be fair, I mean, the internet is likely to be around for a while. And, the world has proven to be kind of dynamic in the last decade. So it's completely possible that this could come up again. And then what happens?
I haven't seen, Bob, did you see in the article? I missed it. Did Mauritius, like, I could see this as an economic opportunity for Mauritius.
Yeah.
Because they have the opportunity to take over that domain. Do you know if they've expressed anybody known if they've expressed any interest in keeping it going? Be like, no, don't kill it off, we want it, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's beyond what I've seen.
Okay.
As far as how this story goes, I mean, it does seem like maybe some of this is a little bit premature, and folks looking to generate
100%.
a little bit of FUD just to get some clicks. But yeah, I mean, I would assume, if the original owner of the IO domain was making money off of it and said country was annexed and becomes a part of another country, that the country that is now the steward of that land would probably take that over, and then the money would go into probably a bigger pool. But that's all super speculative, just based on life and corporate life and how that sometimes goes, and saying, well, maybe that applies to countries too.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how this pans out, since it's kind of a worldly issue, because this is not just one continent or one country or anything like that. It's a whole world. It's an international topic, because the whole world is going to have to agree on something. Almost seems like something that should be, I want to say, like, open source it, but I know that's probably not possible, because who's going to want to take that over without,
No, like the boring answer, because they are top level domains that are not associated. They're not like country, right? Like
Yep.
so like, I think the .app is one, apparently .dev is another one. So
.com, .edu, .net.
Yeah, so like the right boring solution is suddenly that becomes a global TDL, and then there is kind of like a bidding process of who wants it, right? And then registrars will bid on it. But it is just kind of weird that suddenly you're like you're dealing with one particular registrar, and suddenly it's like, nope, now it's owned by somebody else, and you have to like do all like Lord knows that DNS is one of those things that you want to do for 20 years and never touch back again.
Don't touch it. Yeah. No, imagine what this would have looked like if the internet existed during the fall of the Roman Empire. Just for a second, imagine what that might look like. This is chaotic, right?
Yeah.
Can you imagine though what would happen if somebody did purchase it and then they start to tell everyone who's got an IO domain that they're going to have to start
Get a new
paying?
one or
You know,
or pay more.
Well,
Yeah.
no, yeah,
There's gonna be mass
oh, man.
exodus, I would believe, right?
It's you know it's how hard do you turn that knob?
Yeah.
Right.
A little and make a good
A little
but
fun, and
money.
then
Turn
everybody
it too far, you get the mass exodus, right? You gotta
Yeah.
you gotta
Yeah.
where's that balance?
Josh, have you ever done a domain transition for a major corporation?
No.
Oh,
It's a lot more painful than you would think. Like
I
it
Can't
is.
even imagine, I'm sure.
If you're going for, from $10 a year to $30 a year, trust me, they're all gonna pay. It's to Michael's point. There's a certain point where you turn that knob and people
Sure.
start thinking about it, but you probably got to turn that knob a lot further than you would generally think. There is branding money, there is Google ads, there is trust associated with a domain where you have to prime your email addresses again. Like you would not imagine the pain involved in switching domains. And I take that from somebody that thought it was easy.
Yeah.
Once.
Do you need
Never
to
again.
issue your certificates if your TLD authority changes?
Do you need to, which certificates?
Like your secure, like
Your
the
certs? Yeah, I mean, you
Yes.
generate your search for a certain domain. So yes,
Yeah,
you would
exactly.
need new, but that's actually the easy part. Like getting new certs, you should be rotating your certs
that's
anyway.
automated. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That should be automated.
That's not hard.
Whatever, man.
That should be automated.
You
That's the
manually
kind of stuff that I
Freddie,
deal
are you
with, that
manually
Freddie deals
rotating
with.
your
We don't
certs?
change
Come
all
on now.
companies' domains.
let me run my bash script. All right, so hopefully IO will be here to stay. It might come with a premium now. We'll see how that phones out. The next one, somebody's not happy with Slack.
Oh, Disney. Yeah, Michael, I think this is you too, because you're the Disney lover of the crew.
Yeah, so there was a compromise in with Disney. I believe it was, what was it actually? It was the yeah, so somebody got hold of every message and file of over 10,000 internal Disney Slack channels. And so Disney, in their infinite wisdom of how to fix this problem, instead of actually just trying to secure the things they've got, they just said, yeah, never mind, we're going to get rid of Slack. Which feels like a bit of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because by getting rid of the tool, I don't think Slack did anything wrong with regards to this to cause the compromise.
But like how was the hack? Because Slack came out saying like it's not something inherently on Slack. It's not like Slack is insecure.
Right. Yeah, no, it's somebody got access to it and it just siphoned everything off. It's Slack itself didn't do anything wrong.
Oh.
It was somebody who shouldn't have had access to a system got access to a system. So if you replace Slack with insert any other messaging IM software out there, you're gonna have the exact same problem.
So did somebody walk away from their terminal and somebody else jumped in and got on there and got into Slack, or did they hack the account?
I don't know the exact mechanics. I doubt it was that crude.
Yeah.
I'm assuming somebody just.
It was maybe a phone, and then somebody got that's how I can see it happening. You forget your phone, you lose your phone, you're still signed in.
The old iPhone story, remember that? I don't know, it was the iPhone 4 or whatever. Somebody lost their prototype. Anyway,
this feels like CYA then on Disney's part. I mean, so like there is a certain accountability to vendors if they make the mistake and people cancel. Like, I mean, you look at what happened with CrowdStrike. There is a certain part of me that feels like companies that canceled working with CrowdStrike after that issue, you have a fairly valid case that, hey, this vendor may not be operating in a way that is going to facilitate my business, and I'm going to take my business elsewhere to find somebody that can do X, Y, and Z without issues. But like, hey, you broke your own security protocol and you got stuff stolen, and it was because of social engineering or something where it was an employee of your company, and then you cancel with the vendor. It feels like somebody's probably trying to cover their oops.
Yeah.
Very well put. Yep.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting because like I'm trying to remember, like it used to be not harder, like it was always vulnerable, but I think like one of these things is like this becomes so pervasive, right? Like, Slack is everywhere. You have it on your phone. You may even have it like you have the web interface, so you can actually do it off work computers. You can actually have multiple Slack accounts on the same Slack app, right? So it's like it's definitely harder to harden this kind, like aside from like I'm trying to figure out if there was a way to prevent this, besides
It's all those videos your companies make you watch every year for security and worms and spear phishing and all that stuff. I mean,
if a company is big enough, there will be somebody.
People are the weak link in security at the end of the day. It's not the technology. It's not like dumping Slack isn't going to solve the problem that caused this.
Yeah, it's layers, right? Like cheese. That's a huge.
Yeah, it'd be a totally different story if the platform got hacked or something, and
Exactly.
it was vulnerable, and that doesn't seem to be the case.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a policy thing, though. I mean, why were they able to download as much as they were? Did you hack a very high,
or
a person of authority?
Yeah,
but again, but again, that's the administration of the tool.
It's policy. Yes, it's policy.
Poorly.
Yeah, it's company policy that is the issue.
Yeah.
So
because it's interesting that Disney, a company that large, has dumped Slack. If Slack was really the problem, I would have expected others to follow. I haven't seen anything about anybody else following suit with Slack.
Yeah, it almost feels like a knee-jerk reaction to a particular tech problem that has nothing to do. Like, it's not going to solve it. All right. Well, don't blame Slack. Make sure your Slack is protected, I guess. Watch those videos like
I
Bob
miss
said.
Don't quote me on that. I know they're hard to suffer through.
Yeah. All right. So next one, JDK 24 schedule.
Yeah, I added this one, but I mean, it's applies to all of us as Java developers. I mean, the thing that stuck out the most out of 24 is, we've covered these releases on the show for a while. This one looks pretty heavy. Like, it looks like there is a lot of stuff in here compared to other releases. So I'm kind of excited about it. And the other thing is there's some things that have kind of snuck up on me where I'm like, hey, that's in its fourth preview, or it's fourth beta or whatever. Like, I haven't tried any of this stuff yet. I gotta start checking some of these things, these experimental or not necessarily experimental, but preview features out, because they're starting to get more mature. And I think, I don't know if it was Josh or Michael that made the comment before the show. We're prepping for 25 here, right? This is the preview of that.
Yeah, no,
I think things would have to go really sideways on any of these things for them to not land in 25 as GA.
No, and it feels like it's kind of interesting because on all these reasons they're being very careful, right? Because they know that once it's out of preview and it's on the LTS, it's gonna stay forever, right? So I appreciate them like that for preview. We're really trying. I remember I was doing some structured concurrency stuff, and it was like that. Like, they were like, you know what, it's in preview. We just changed the API again because this was not working, and this part is actually better. So essentially now that they're coming up with the big beefy, because they know the LTS is coming, I think they're really gearing up to commit to these ones. And scope values look very fun, which is a answer when you have to pass things around in a structured way, like pass things around that you don't care, essentially. And because it's essentially a framework call, your code, and then you need to call back into the framework somehow. And the framework requires you to say like, hey, I need to remember what I was doing with my context, and it needs to pass it through. Now they're actually making it such that, you know, it's not as cumbersome as global variables. It's not as cumbersome as you having to remember the thing that they need. It might be done just with scope values, and it's like a souped up thread local. So these things are like, oh my gosh, they'll make code much cleaner, and you don't have to, you as a framework designer don't have to worry about people passing you the wrong stuff or not being thread safe. All that stuff disappears for like one of these things. So it's gonna be exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one I ran into, and this is actually a work related thing that I hit, is the 472 prepare to restrict use of JNI. I actually had one of the open source changes was made in NiFi started making a warning appear, because once you get to 21 and you have things that are accessing the JNI that you haven't enabled and allowed it, you start to get warning messages in the console that's going to say, hey, you're starting to access some native methods that you haven't given access to. In Java, I don't think it's 24 necessarily. It might be like 22 or 23 that where it's been released is the error message will actually give you the class that it's occurring in, because Java 21 just says, hey, this is happening. So we actually running on a beta release allowed us to easily find the class and nail down exactly what was causing it, instead of just kind of guessing and trying to figure out, okay, well, what's the needle in the haystack here that's causing this problem. And now you're starting to get to the, with 24, you're starting to cross into, okay, they're preparing to restrict it. So rather than just getting the warning, they're getting prepared to say, hey, this is going to be blocked, or it's going to cause an exception. Which is, again, with all the modularity pieces, this is kind of where the JVM has been heading in general. So it's just kind of interesting to see that evolution and how that's kind of progressed, and how careful they've been on this progression with all the warning messages. So as long as you've been upgrading your JDK, you're going to benefit from these warning messages and be prepared for when this stuff finally hits.
Right.
Gosh,
Very similar with JEP 486, permanently disable the security manager.
Yeah.
We've known about that for a while, and we've seen the warnings, but that's going to be the same type of a thing.
No, I kind of remember I remember when they did the null pointers. What was it? The null pointer.
The error message description. Those are awesome.
Oh
yes.
gosh, it was just amazing. Like night and day. I cannot like I don't even remember like a time like I actually ejected out of my memory like all those times. So it's like, who was null? Like,
Yeah. You just get the line in the logs, and it's like, well, shit. Now I'm gonna have to go look at a bunch of code and see if I can find out where this
which
null
one
is
was
happening.
it? Oh god.
But no, they've done a really good job. I mean, that's why it actually, occurred to me to even just think, hey, let's run this on a layered JDK. I know we haven't compiled on it, I know we haven't run on it, but it's a JVM. It should probably be compatible. And this one says it's got the enhanced error messages. And sure enough, it's just like this preview edition that had been out for, a early edition JDK. It gave me the class name. I'm like, yep, it's that class. It's almost like a toolkit to go to. Is like, okay, I'm not getting the information I need. Let's just try the next JDK and see if they fixed it by then.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. This is nice. And then
One-
the thing is like also like if they're removing essentially like the JNI calls, but there is FFM, right? Like there's 45.
Yeah. Yes.
So it's not like, oh, you cannot call outside ever. It's just that they're really trying to push the use.
Well, they want you to be intentional about it. Like, so again, there's flags where you can enable it across the boards. If you just kind of like the modularity thing where you just disable modularity. you know, all the opens calls and all of that stuff. This is kind of being built out in a similar way. If you want to just enable any JNI call, you are free to pass that enable JNI flag at JVM startup, and this stuff goes away. But you know, the intent is that you are intentional about the libraries that you're bringing in that are making native calls to at least either make that judgment or force your library developers to declare where those calls are coming from in a more specific way, so that you can kind of target and say, okay, this class is going to be making a JNI call and it's fine. That's kind of the perspective that I think they're heading towards. And yes, FFI, like foreign function interfaces, absolutely, that's a piece of this as well.
Yeah.
But this is kind of, I see this as an extension of the modularity framework and just the security features of just making developers being intentional about what's happening.
There's a lot going on in this release with there's a bunch of stuff in preview, there's a bunch of stuff in experimental, there's some stuff in incubator. Anybody want to walk the audience through like what those mean and like the differences?
I think like
Yeah, go ahead, Freddie. Take
I was
that.
gonna say, like for the previews are you know, like I know that that's like introduction to APIs that they're free to change, right? Like they are essentially asking for feedback, and because I know that one just because it did change on me on structured concurrency. For experimental, I'm not sure if that is like if they're committed or not.
So the definition that I found, preview
Yep.
features according to JEP 12, it is a language feature that is fully specified, fully implemented, and yet impermanent. So they've done all the work, they just haven't agreed that it's permanent yet. So they could it could evolve, but that's basically the last step. Experimental features are kind of the step before that. For purchases for the purpose of comparison, if an experimental feature is considered 25% done, then a preview should be at least 95% done. An incubating feature is a flat-out experimental API distributed in a separate module. So when we look at the JEPs that are coming through in JDK 24, flexible constructor bodies, module import declarations, simple source files and instance main methods, key derivation function API, scoped values, primitive types and patterns, instance of and switch. Those are all previews currently. Yet generational Shenandoah, compact object headers, those are experimental, and vector API is in its 9th incubator. So if we look ahead to 25, I would assume previews come out of preview into GA, and experimentals and incubators probably hang out.
Yeah, and I mean, for both of those types of features, most of them are opt-in where you have to pass enable preview flags. So it's, you're
in 24,
your JVM's not going to have that stuff on by default. So you're probably not going to see that in your general open source libraries. It's really, on you as a developer if you want to try out those features and just see how it looks in your code and potentially enable it in a non-production environment.
Yeah, buyer beware.
Yes.
So with respect to the incubator, I'm looking at the vector API, which is in its 9th incubator. And so with each release of the JDK, is there a new incubator then for that? Like, did they have a new JEP and it's in its own module? Is that the difference? It's in a different module?
It is in its own module. Yes, it is distributed separately. As far as, do they get a new incubator? Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure that's how this works is each JDK instance, you revise the preview, or you revise the incubator, or it moves forward. So incubator goes to experimental goes to preview kind of thing.
So, I'm also wondering, once you get out of the incubator stage, does that mean that they're integrating it into the JDK now? It's no longer a module. And then at that point, it goes forward as experimental or preview.
I'm not 100% sure about experimental if they are included in
Yeah.
JDK or if they're packaged separately. I think they come with, but require a flag.
I don't mean to put you on the spot. I'm just
Nope.
curious now that I'm looking at it.
I opened the door on the questions. I think
Well-
they're included, but like I said, you need a flag to turn them on.
Yeah, I'm seeing, so there, if for example, Shenandoah, the generational Shenandoah, it's not an enabled preview flag, but there is an -XX : plus unlock experimental VM options that needs to be placed. So it does seem like experimental has an additional step, whereas enabling previews is generally a hey, let's just enable all the preview features. It's a lot smaller bar, whereas you have to be very intentional about turning on an experimental feature.
Yeah.
Through one or more flags that you would flip.
Yeah, no, the experimental, they say like early versions of VM level features, which can be risky, incomplete, or even unstable. so yeah, that one is like walking on the bleeding edge.
Yeah.
You don't want to code that into your startup script.
No.
Again, buyer beware. Like
Yeah.
Well, you can play with toys. That's
exactly.
But yeah, very, very exciting looking release. You know, we can't overemphasize enough the whole, how successful the train releases have been and for the JDK and what that's been able to do. More fun on the way soon.
And it looks like general availability in March.
Yep.
Then next one I think is Jakarta EE. That's all you, Josh.
Yeah, Jakarta EE, get ready because Jakarta EE 11 is going to be coming out in December. So they're looking to release this at the same time as the Jakarta EE live stream in the early December. And so it'll be real interesting to see if this one gets out there on, at this next proposed date, because it was already pushed out the one time, and that was due to the TCK was not quite finished yet. So looks like they're on target to release in December, and this will be also interesting to see exactly everything that is out there in Jakarta EE 11. And another thing to start looking at if you're interested in the Jakarta EE ecosphere is Jakarta EE 12. There's actually a page, Jakarta EE github.io /platform. And if you look at that page, it shows you all the different Jakarta EE releases, and 12 is on there. And you can take a look and see what the release plan is, what their proposed schedule is, looking like H1 2026 right now for that. And very early days. There's some pretty deep discussions going on about what should go into 12 at this point. Some discussions around getting rid of EJB altogether. You know, so I think it's going to be interesting. I think they're looking to take it up a step, you know, take it up a notch here for 12 and do a little bit of modernization.
That is interesting. So yeah, so just be on the watch out. They're gonna release it, you said, at the same as they have that online Jakarta conference. Is that?
Yes, Jakarta live stream. I want to say it's the 6th, but don't quote me on that. I'll get the date. But that's a live stream. It's pretty much devoted to Jakarta EE and micro profile, and it's a 1-day online. I think there's 10 sessions.
All right.
So.
And then for the next news item, this is you, Bob.
Oh, let me get back to my document. Hold on. Oh, so Apache Tomcat 11. Yeah, no. So I mean, this actually came up. This wasn't actually me, but I had some color commentary on it since I was at Community Over Code, where we cut the cake on the 25th anniversary of Tomcat's first commit for the ASF. So Tomcat 11 is out. They're including support for virtual threads, which is something we've talked about on the show as being one of those things that we were very excited to see in a web server, just for experimentation to see how far we can push the virtual threads technology. But yeah, it's there. It's in Tomcat. Tomcat turns 25, so it can rent a car now. So very exciting times for folks using JVM-based web servers.
No, and
sure.
I have to, yeah, I have to say, like the virtual threads, it is nice. Like, now that it's part of like the regular development, like the one thing is like we tried to put it everywhere. It just turned on a big switch and just replace everything in virtual threads. That did not work. So, so then you
Honest
take a
silver
step.
bullet? No way.
Magic.
I thought it was just a feature. You just turn it on. No, but doing it like purposefully, right? Like you take this part, it's like, okay, I'm moving this into virtual threads and I don't need a thread pool anymore. It feels very satisfying because then you're just really like pulling out and it's like, oh yeah, like and it is kind of fun because it is like there's all these knowledge that we have about how to size your thread pool, how to size your like even in Tomcat, right? Like your acceptor threads and all that stuff. And oh, you really don't need to worry about that. Like the example I always hear is like you never like count how many strings you need. You just use a string when you need it.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like that is kind of like the ability that the virtual threads is allowing you to do. It's like just I need a thread. I just create one and then just send it off. So yeah, this is gonna be fun.
It's and also, did you mention the Jakarta EE 11 is supported on Tomcat 11 as well?
Oh, so you can run. Oh, so you can run the Jakarta EE.
Yeah, the updated
Yes,
server
it's
stuff.
it's going to support the GA release of Jakarta EE 11. So it should be pretty interesting from that aspect as well.
Like somebody has been typing very fast to
Mark
try to make
Mark
sure
has been
both
busy.
of them.
Mark has been busy.
Yep.
Like to our developer heroes, we salute you. All right. So the last one that we have, it actually ties in to our discussion topic, right? So the topic is the fall of Stack Overflow, and who put this one in?
So I was the one that did it. So there's a guy, his ID or whatever is, and I don't know how to pronounce his name. It's AYHAN, and then he's got a C after it. Is the person who wrote the blog post. And one of the cool taking a step back. One of the cool things that I've always loved about Stack Overflow, besides the information that you can get from the community, is they've always been incredibly transparent. So you can download all of the public data available on Stack Overflow. I've actually done a talk using that data. I recreated a Stack Overflow website and create a recommendation engine using that data. But one of the things they also do is they offer their site data. So you can see how many visitors they're getting, how many posts they're getting, how many questions are being asked. All these things are publicly available data. And so this person wrote a blog post on how traffic over the past year and a half is down about 35% overall on Stack Overflow, with the rate of votes and questions and stuff dropping off significantly more than that, running about 50% lower than it was about a year and a half ago. The blog post was written at the end of last year, so it's even beyond that. And so before the show we were talking about what's happened, what changed, like, and I think we all kind of agree, and this kind of takes us into the discussion conversation of, well, when ChatGPT came out, now you don't have to post something on a website and wait for somebody to respond and whatnot and hope they get it right and whatnot. You can literally just go to ChatGPT, ask a question, and it's going to give you a workable answer in a lot of cases.
Yeah, no, and I think that speaks to the like it's kind of interesting because I can see my behavior changing as well. Like I used to be a Stack Overflow, just it was on my Google homepage because
Yeah.
like that I know I'm gonna be asking a question. Uh, but the more and more I've been like getting comfortable on the AI and this kind of like AI helpers and generators, it's like, yeah, I I, it is more tight knit to my like development flow that I feel like it is less interactive than actually going to a website and typing in, which is not a lot. Like it's not a big change. Meaning like it doesn't take a lot of time, but letting the AI do it for me takes even less time.
Yeah, and I think there's certain types of questions that lend themselves well to that. Some of the start here type questions where you're just trying to get started and you're trying to get bootstrapped
Yep.
with some simple generated code.
That's what
OpenAI does a great job with those things because it's very repeatable processes, and the Stack Overflow data, no doubt, was part of the training for creating some of that. In my opinion, I think they must have had to have looked at that. Where I think it can be lacking, though, is in those somewhat deeper questions where it's a little bit more niche, where I think there is still a very strong reason to use a Stack Overflow, because either the information is dynamic. So let's talk about new features in the JDK. Stack Overflow is not going to have that. It's not going to know that there's a get last and a get first method now in the collections APIs in Java, because that came out with 21, and most of the models have not incorporated those types of changes into their training data. So that those types of things will generally still require a developer either to do traditional search or just to be up to date on those things to get the right answers.
I think it also I completely agree with your like getting started in something is those questions lend themselves great to the thing I used it for recently is I just started playing around with Open Rewrite a few weeks back. I had never written my own custom recipe before, so ran over to Open or ChatGPT and I said, "How do you write a custom recipe?" It kicked out the template of a recipe. I copied and pasted it, put in my stuff, and I'm like, "This is cool." But in my ID, I'm like, "Wait a minute, it's not compiling." That's because I don't have my dependencies, and the original answer didn't tell me what they were. So I went back over the conversation and what are the dependencies for the thing you just gave me? And it gave me in Maven or Gradle exactly what to copy and paste into my POM, and it worked. It was great. So it told me what to do, but I had to ask it a question. I had to know what I needed to do in the first place. And I think that's where the thing that I think the models and whatnot at this point are lacking is if I don't know what to do, is it going to get me in the right place? Like if I asked it, how do I build a Java web service? I don't know full disclosure, I haven't tried this. But I've got a hunch from like an architectural perspective, if you're architecting these things, like it's going to give you the options. It's not going to tell you what the best is. It's going to look into your use case with regards to, is GraphQL better than REST? And like these kinds of things, you need to know how to drill into that stuff to ask the right questions to get valid answers. And obviously everybody on this call is that way. We have 20 plus years experience each of us. That's not the case in a lot of scenarios though.
It's definitely a skill in prompting, the AI in order to obtain the correct answer. You're correct on that. It's too easy to just throw something out there and like Bob had said, it'll just spit out the code, maybe using some experimental features of JDK 24, and you have no idea, and then you'll try and use it and it won't work. And yeah.
No, and it's the same problem, right? Like you can ask 20 developers, do this for me, and you're gonna get 20 different answers, right? Like the experience comes from understanding, what are you trading off, right? Like, yeah, like you said, REST, gRPC, XML, WSDL, like there are things, right? But the thing is like that is, yeah, if you have no idea of software development, or you never being trained either formally or informally, or like self-starter, these tools will not help you, right? Like you will not know what to ask, or will you not know how to interpret what they're giving back to you. But I think that if you do have that knowledge, like for example, I was like, and maybe this is something cool that we should say, right? Like, I'm using GitHub Copilot in my IDE all the time, right? Like it's part of my flow. It's policy based, right? Like don't do this if your company doesn't allow you to do it.
Does your company's cool with it though?
My company pay for the enterprise license.
We actually, to full disclosure, like we actually just got Copilot officially deactivated from our accounts this week.
Yeah. You say officially deactivated?
Deactivated, yes. So our GitHub Enterprise accounts, they were all shut off.
Interesting.
I can use Copilot if I want to via personal, like through personal accounts, but
Right.
through GitHub Enterprise, access was blocked.
They're not backing it.
Well, but that's interesting because recently there's an article out about Google. About 25% of that company's code is said to be AI generated. And again, I think most of those use cases are very likely code completion things, kind of GitHub enterprise type stuff. Now, I'm not a Google employee, so I can't speak to what exactly, maybe they're using their own, because Google has their own internal models. So they could be using their own internally trained model where it's like, yeah, we know where all that we have all of the data provenance of where this all came from, and we're comfortable with that. And the lawyer said it was fine. But yeah, from an outside company saying, where did this come from in GitHub Copilot? And is it okay? I can see why that would make some places nervous. People are very, very interested in what were the things trained on? Where did the initial model and model architecture come from? All of those things are very relevant questions legally, because it's kind of a big soup right now. Nobody knows what the law is on that, but people are kind of placing chips on various sides of that equation of where that may land. It'll be our next Google versus Oracle thing. Is training data?
It might actually be Google versus Oracle.
And it could be.
that could be.
I've been tracking this since the beginning.
Maybe Microsoft versus OpenAI. I feel like it has to pivot a little.
One owns the other, so I doubt that.
Yeah, but there's been some headbutting. So,
True.
yeah. I mean, we'll see where that legal lands. But right now, it's just so nebulous. It's just hard to actually know where it's going to land.
It's probably like a calculated risk, right? Like to be clear, like all this did go through. It was a legal process to provision, but so what I can say is, like, there's some companies that are comfortable doing it. There's some that are not. But if you happen to be on one that is comfortable doing it, gosh, it's so nice, because
Freddie, the big difference is you're not selling your software, right?
We are not.
That's fundamentally the difference.
This is yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, there's probably something that play into that. But like the thing that I like for example, I have to do this Python script. And I love Python. I have no shade to Python. They do what they need to do. But I was like, all right, how do you templatize a string? And I'm like, like for those who know, is you put in the F, open quotes, and then it's kind of like string template, so you can just replace your variables in there, right? And no idea, right? So I just write a little comment, like I want a string with my templatized variables X, and because the autocomplete immediately understands that is the question I'm asking, that it just auto inserts the stuff. I didn't even have to change, I didn't even have to change the focus of the editor, right? Like I was just writing. So now I am essentially programming my comments. I write a comment, wait for it to figure it out. It's like, yep.
See, I can definitely see that being useful in probably in almost any organization, because you're not putting your code into the thing. You're asking a question, you're prompting it for, a specific thing, and it's returning you what it believes is correct. And, the same, discussion can be had about that code. Is that really correct or not? But in the end, it's just like going to different website, Stack Overflow or something else, and trying to find the code. But where I can see there being possible legal issues is if I'm putting my code onto the thing and having it, check it. So like pair programming type stuff. Like I'm putting some proprietary code that I've wrote for my office, and I put this in the AI to have it take a look and check and test it possibly. I could certainly see that becoming an issue, because what happens with
So-
that code after you put it in the
So
AI, right?
wait, Michael, your eyebrows did a little thing there, and I think
Yeah,
I want to know where the.
No, I mean, we're here, like, Bob, I think you already talked about how, like, Google's probably doing Google said 25% of the code is generated.
Yeah.
And I'm sure everything that they're doing is on-prem. Like, they're not farming this out to Amazon, right? Like, I think I could definitely, we know there is an ask by the industry to do more AI stuff, but they need to be able to do it on-prem. They are
Yeah.
not willing to share the data that does it, whether it be source code, whether it be, PII is another scenario
Sure.
where
Oh, yeah.
like there's plenty of areas where, like, I want to do AI stuff, but I need to be able to control the overall interactions that happen. Like they need to
Exactly.
be behind my firewall scenario. Like this is
Yeah.
something that, like, don't get me wrong, the hottest and coolest stuff is happening in the hyperscalers with the services and whatnot. But I personally view that the long-term viability of this is going to be on-prem with models that are downloaded, the Hugging Faces and Llama kind of thing. Like that's where this is going to end.
Yeah.
And Josh, to your point, I think I kind of countered your point rather is just because you asked the question and you got code back. I think that here's the I am not a lawyer, but
Yeah.
if the AI returns something because it was trained on something that may have been copyrighted somewhere else and it doesn't pass the smell test as, hey, this is fair use, and there's only one way to do it, and all of the underpinnings from Google Oracle that they use to justify API usage is, hey, this is just the one way we do it, and then this is how you share it. If you're getting copyrighted code that was fed into that model, I can't tell you whether that's going to be legal to use for you or not, just because it came from a model. It could say, hey, this model just transferred copyrighted code to you that this company that had this model had no business giving you.
I mean, I look at it even beyond that, in that
Sure.
you're looking at the provenance and where it came, the essentially the inspiration, if you will, the status of that. But I look at it as, using Copilot as the example. GitHub owns Copilot. There's nothing stopping GitHub from saying that there is a license on the code that Copilot generates. Right now, there's not, and that's one of the challenges, is the fact that they don't give you a license when the code is generated. They only talk about provenance. They don't say the license the code I generate is granted to you under this license. If they did that, it would solve, I think, a lot of these legal problems. Now, don't get me wrong, you would get signed then up for all kinds of lawsuits to figure out, whether or not they could actually do that.
You just licensed my proprietary code as Apache code.
Yeah,
you can't do that.
Exactly. So that's where the court battles end up being in that scenario. But, like, that's the whole reason, I can't accept AI generated code into my projects, because regardless, it's not about the provenance. It's about the license that I'm allowed to use it under.
Right. And I think it's for an open source project is extra tricky, right? Because like you are offering it under an open source license.
Yeah, exactly. Like and not only is obviously Apache 2, not only is it that you can use it freely, but I'm offering, like, patent indemnification for the Apache 2. Like, there's actually patent angles in there that Apache that makes it an attractive license, but also opens up risk in scenarios like this.
Yeah, I mean, to say that, hey, I'm borrowing code from another project via a library or something like this, Apache has a legal page which classifies different licenses as input, as A, B, to category X, which is banned from Apache project. So to Michael's point, if you're within the foundation, if you have a project and you want to even just use a library as a dependency, and that dependency is in the category X, you're not going to do that. At least not as part of the project that gets released through the foundation.
Which like wasn't that Scala thing that happened to Scala, right? There was an Apache project where Lightbend changed the
Akka?
Akka, yeah, there you go.
Apache Pinot or Pinot or yeah, I know what you're talking about, but I don't understand. I'm not sure I follow where you're going.
No, Flink used Akka under the hood.
Yeah,
Apache Flink used Akka under the hood, and when they changed the license, I haven't followed that story since it happened. I remember the initial announcement was that they were going to reevaluate the use of Akka, and that they were freezing the version on the open source version until I figured out what to do.
Pico, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Pico's the Apache. It's something else. Sorry.
I have not followed what Flink has done since, though. That's interesting. That's an interesting question. I honestly don't know what they did with it.
Yeah, because I kind of remember that when it happened, it was like you said, like it cannot be used as an Apache project anymore.
Yeah, in 2022.
Well, so I'd be curious if they've moved over to Pico, because Apache Pico is Akka forked under the Apache license. So
I'm on the original blog post for Flink when they did it right now. I'm looking to see. This blog post was posted after the license change, so September 8th, 2022. What's the plan going forward? For now, they would stay on Akka 2.6. That was the last open source version.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they will observe how the situation unfolds and look for a replacement for Akka. They assume that a community fork would be created. If you said Pico's there, so like it would not surprise. Actually, yeah, no, here it is. I found another link. Yeah, they switched to Pico. They ripped out Akka and they switched to Pico.
That makes sense. That seemed like the only reasonable thing to do for them to continue as an Apache project, knowing that there might be security vulnerabilities.
Exactly. Yep.
Etc.
Now, like going back into like how we're using these LLM augmented chatbots. The one thing that it's interesting, and we start using this, is first of all a little bit boring. Generating tests, easy enough, right? You're writing your code and you just say create me a test, and 3/4 will get you there. It's not perfect, but it works. It says the boring stuff, create mogs and all that stuff. Now, the one that I thought was super interesting is we do use it for some training on opening up some code and then asking it what are, for example, the KISS violations or the open close principle, or like give me an analysis of this code and tell me what could be improved, right? And it goes in and tries to tell you, for example, like you have tight coupling over here, maybe you should like separate these concerns, right? Or like the complexity is very high, maybe there's a way to refactor that down. And then you ask it, hey, can you, just like you did with your, like when you're asking for the dependency, can you show me a refactor version of this? And it does a decent job.
I mean, what you're describing is basically the agent paradigm within AI spaces, where the AI, you ask the AI a question, the AI generates something, and then it also then asks itself for feedback on that, and it goes through a few loops of that until finally it says, I have no more feedback, and then it gives it back to you.
Right. No, but it is interesting because like the stuff like that is essentially the patient senior developer explaining you things that you may not know, right? Like a little bit, how to write code, you're writing code, but sometimes you're like, is this good, right? And I think that it's also like not a lot of we're teaching people to use it that way to essentially check themselves, especially like if there's a senior around as a senior, but if you happen to be like, I'm not sure if this looks great or I find this kind of cumbersome for whatever reason, to actually like just ask ChatGPT and then or Copilot and then say like, look, what would you think about this code? What would you do better?
That's
And
something that's actually something I'm surprised GitHub hasn't explored or hasn't rolled out yet. So they've got Copilot to generate your code. That would be, you would think they would be able to review PRs.
Yeah.
I think they're products. There's people already jumped into that market. I'm
Those
aware of
product, but again, like GitHub squashes those products pretty quickly if they
if they see there's value, right?
exactly, yeah, like it's they're the
There was
world. They've got the access.
on the Stack podcast. I can't remember if it was Keto or who brought it in, but somebody brought up a article that talked just about that, exactly doing that and going through the process of taking all the PRs for a project and analyzing them and figuring them out using AI. Be pretty interesting if you could. And I was going to ask a question. Has anybody ever tried to use a local LLM for doing this? Asking the like Code Llama, ask it to review your code or provide feedback or.
Yeah, I mean, I've used local LLMs, but never for code review.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Because that's a meta.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, I mean, even Olama, some of the REST-based stuff has some code-based, code optimized models that are part of that could be used locally. I don't know if any of the IDEs integrate to it or if you're just kind of on your own to prompt them over REST, but that's interesting.
Yeah. I know JetBrains has some integration with AI, but I've not played with it. But I don't know if it would allow you to hook into something local or not.
Now this is interesting. I was just looking up, just real quick, like GitHub did try it. They have GitHub Next Copilot for pull requests, but they sunsetted it. So yeah, in December 2023, they sunsetted it. So
like almost a year ago.
Yeah. So doesn't exactly say why. Did they just say that they sunset it? So that's a question mark. Yeah, not sure.
Yeah, there's a story there I'd love to hear about.
Yeah.
Who do we know from GitHub to have on the podcast?
Something happened.
I know people in sales, but they're not going to talk about this stuff.
No.
Yeah. We just sunset it. Some PR made an oopsie. That's what it sounds like. But we will never know. But I guess so I guess what I'm getting out of it, right? Like we saw it like at the beginning, how LLMs were starting to change how people interact, right? Like documents were the first thing, and we see like there's that huge ramp up. Like things are just keep accelerating, right? The new like whatever ChatGPT 02 or something 4.0, I don't remember. They're bad at names.
Yeah.
But the demos are very impressive. And now this is definitely spill over to like our field, right? And I think it's interesting because like our field is, if anything, is structure, like code has a certain cadence. It's not as freeform as text or like as language. So I guess it's succeeding on that, like almost being a permanent fixture. There's things to be worked out, but I think people are starting to make bets that this is going to stay and that there's going to be a tool. And like the thing that it comes like if it becomes a tool, then we should really use it as much as we can, if it really becomes a tool, right? Like I said, for some companies it's they are on board the Microsoft train, and I use it professional, and it's nice, and it becomes both a quick Stack Overflow search, plus for other juniors, like the ability for them to learn concepts or how to better their code just in there without having to jump out or try to do any like trying to get some airtime with some seniors. We'll see how that ends up, but I'm happy with it. All right, and I think with that, we are done with this episode of OffHeap. If we record, so a couple of things, I guess. We'll be at DevNexus. Bob and I are coming. We're trying to twist the arm for Josh. Mike, are you gonna be there?
I don't think so this year.
Hey, we just have to Shanghai you then, and then take you over there. But yeah, so like it's they accepted our, like, they haven't learned their lesson. They keep accepting us back, and we'll gladly go in and have a couple of beers, and talk to tons of people down there, right? I think when did they schedule it for? I think this is
March 4th through the 6th.
Yeah, so super easy conference to get to. One of the best conferences on the Americas for Java and essentially for software development. So definitely make your way over there. I think the next session we have is going to be probably our holiday section, so we can look back at all the this is where we get to predict what's going to happen, right? So it's going to be a fun one for our next recording. And with that, that's it.
I want to make one correction.
Yes.
To something I said. I said the date incorrectly for the Jakarta EE live stream. It's December 3rd, not the 6th. I was thinking of a previous year, I think. So.
All right. December 3rd, if you're just waiting for the live stream to come up.
That's correct. Check it out.
All right. This is Freddie signing off.
Bob signing off.
Josh signing off.
Michael signing off. If you're on Twitter or X, follow us at OffHeap. And if you're checking this out on YouTube, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe.
Yeah, maybe we should add Blue Sky to this thing. So many platforms. All right, we'll see you in the cyberverse somewhere. All right, we did it.